Welcome to LOA Today. Walt, Thiessen, and life coach Tom Wells here. It's Tuesday, February the 13th, 2018 at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. This is actually the third Daily Dose of Happy for the day because we are doing an experiment tonight. We are finding out whether or not people will actually call in to talk to us by doing a Tuesday evening show. And Tom, this is something we talked about a few weeks ago and decided, let's give it a go, because we know it is kind of tough for people to call during the workday. That's just, the nature of things. But evening hours, well, that ought to be a little bit better. So let's find out. That's what we're doing. We're going to find out whether or not we can get any calls in. So how you doing? I haven't talked to you since yesterday morning, but I hope things are good.
Yeah, things are good. I've been working a lot on my own prosperity consciousness, which this show's about, and it's been fun to. I was prompted by our show Monday morning, which was about prosperity and allowing more money into your life, and I feel like that's something that I'm always open to, expanding and learning more about. So it's been really cool the last day and a half. Among other things I've done, I had a great comedy improv class and. Yeah, not a lot of other stuff going on, but it's been good. Good time period. Well, how about you?
Oh, well, we got a couple of good things happening. Today we have broken our record for the most podcast plays in one day. We have over 500 today, which shatters the old record. The old record was 458. And today, last count, we were at 510 and counting because the day isn't over yet. I mean, just blowing my mind how many people have been listening today to the various podcasts that we have on the podcast list. The thing that amazes me about it is that 500 or more, that a year ago was the equivalent of about 5 months worth of listeners. We just did in one day what we used to do in 5 months. That's just blowing my mind. It's just incredible.
That is really mind-blowing.
It is.
You can imagine where it could be at a year from now.
Oh, my goodness.
You could be having 5,000, 10,000 in one day. Who knows?
5,000, 10,000, 50,000.
The world is a big place.
It is.
Yeah.
There's 7 billion people on this planet. There's a lot of people who live here. And we're going to try to reach every single one of them.
And that's fantastic. I notice how many of my clients come from overseas, and I don't know why that is. It seems like I almost get more clients from other countries where it seems like in some of these countries they're just discovering things like The Secret and Law of Attraction. A lot of them haven't even heard of Abraham Hicks, but they've gotten turned on to it through The Secret, and it's sort of like they're on a different learning curve than I think what's been going on in the United States. And I don't know if that's the reason, but they certainly talk like they don't know a lot about Law of Attraction, but they really love the idea of it. People from India, people from Serbia and Saudi Arabia, all these different places that I get calls from.
It matches my experience when I see people on Facebook, for instance. There are a couple of groups there that get a lot of activity, one in particular, and you see people from literally every country around the world contributing to that group. Many of them, are newbies to it. They're new to it, and they're asking questions, and they're trying to understand and trying to learn how to apply it and so forth. So it's exciting. People are interested from all around the world. And I do want to take a moment to let people know, if you want to call in, probably the easiest thing to do is to be listening to this podcast at the homepage at loatoday.net. You'll see 3 different ways you can actually connect in. One's by phone. One is by clicking a link to play the software in your Chrome browser, your Google Chrome browser. And the third one, you can actually download an app and connect to us that way. So 3 different ways to do it. If you decide you want to call in on the phone number is area code 712-832-8330. And then once you get called in, you're actually calling the number for freeconference.com, because that's the software we're using bridged into our speaker software so we can record the show. You'll need an access code. The access code is 334-2044. So that's area code 712-832-8330, access code 334-2044. And if that's too much to remember, again, the best place to do it is just go to the homepage of loatoday.net, and you'll see it all there. So that little bit of housekeeping out of the way. The second thing that happened, that has been happening today, as you know, Tom, usually when we do these shows, and it's true for all the co-hosts, Before and after the show, we'll do some chatting, right? And today, Wendy and I were chatting after the show, and we were talking about her Project X, her secret project that she can't tell anybody about. But she was feeding me a few details that I can't divulge on the air. But one thing that was really interesting, you know how we've talked a lot about the importance of storytelling? Well, she started telling me the story of this Project X that she is trying to manifest. And let me tell you, it was a great story. It was so good that I was finding that my conscious mind was actually convinced that what she was telling me was reality. And I had to stop myself in the middle of what she was saying and say, oh, wait a minute. What she's actually telling me is her story of what she wants to happen. And I'd hold that thought for a minute, and then a few minutes later, I'm right back to, oh, this is the real story again. Oh, no, wait a minute. This is the story that she's trying to tell me. It was amazing. I mean, literally, my mind could not differentiate between reality and what she was saying in the story. It was the same thing in my mind. And to actively watch myself as I'm kind of snapping myself back and then getting pulled away and snapping back and getting pulled away was fascinating. It really shows the power of storytelling and basically changing the stories, the self-talk that we tell to ourselves when we're talking about what it is we're trying to attract.
Yeah, and to get into the emotion of it, like when you were telling some stories the other day at the end of the podcast on Monday about your own success in the different areas of what you're creating in your life as you go forward, and you were talking about the travel you're doing and the home you're owning and all these different things, and I could feel your enthusiasm build the more you talked about it, and the more clear you got and expressed the things as if they were already a done deal. I really felt infected by it myself. It made me want to tell more stories myself.
It is a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I use this one journal, where I write things as if they've already happened, and I really kind of like writing in that journal when I remember to do it, because you write everything from the point of view of, like let's say you say it's been such a great year, 2018. I couldn't believe that I increased the amount of clients by 5 times this year. I was able to handle 5 times the clients, and that resulted in a 5 times increase in my income. And so I was able at the end of the year to literally take the entire month of December 2018 off, and I was able to go to Costa Rica and spend 3 weeks there and not even have to think about it at all. And my clients were great about it. They didn't mind having me wait. Having them wait until I got back. So it was this amazing year of just, I just didn't expect that things were going to go so good in 2018, and yet it was just such a great reflection of my attitude that I had throughout that whole year. Was just that it's a done deal. I'm going to increase my clients, and I'm going to increase my income, and it's happening. It's just a done deal. Anyway, things like that. You write that stuff in your journal as if it's already done.
And you convinced me.
That was a good example, but
it is a good example, because as you were saying that, I believed you. Literally, it happened again. Once again, my attention to the fact that you were telling a story kind of got lost, and I believed you. It's like, oh wow, all these great things are happening to Tom. I was so excited. Then you brought me back by saying, well, there's the story. I said, oh yeah, he's just telling a story. I forgot. It's amazing. Seriously,
a good thing to do is to make a meetup group. You could have it on the phone, or you could have it online, or you could have it in person, but a meetup group where everyone shares what they've accomplished in their life. Like, let's say that it's, everyone agrees that we're going to come to this meetup group, and it's going to be December of 2018, and we're all going to talk about what we accomplished this year. And we're going to do it each week or once a month, for the whole year of 2018. And let's see what we say and how much we can make those, allow those things to manifest by talking about it and getting into the emotion and the enthusiasm of it as if it's already a done deal. It's a cool thing.
It is. I continue to be fascinated by the power of stories. And in fact, you'll remember when I brought you and Wendy and Cindy on board last November, that I was telling to you guys I wanted to do a different kind of podcast because I wanted a podcast that leaned heavily on stories. And to a certain extent, I'd been doing that previously with David and with Joel before him, but not really with a huge emphasis on it. For a while there, Joel and I actually had a pretty strong emphasis on it, but then Joel had to leave, and when David came in, we kind of backed off on that a bit. But when you guys came on, I really wanted to emphasize it because stories are so powerful in human culture, in all human cultures, all societies. And in fact, when you look at virtually everything that goes on in a public way, even news, what do they call it? They call them news stories. The stories, for whatever, all the negativity that's in them, they still just draw people's attention because they have the elements of a good story. And when you have that, people just can't help but listen to the stories. Which is why it's really important to, be careful about what kind of stories you're listening to. But the power of stories is just amazing. And so my theory, my approach with the podcast from that point on last November was, let's just include as much storytelling as we can, because I don't know exactly what will manifest out of it. What I do know is amazing stuff will manifest out of it. And it's already happening. We've seen this huge increase in listenership. That was not really expected. I mean, but it's just been massive. And we'd already seen a big increase, which is what led me to bring you guys on in the first place. But since then, I mean, literally like 1/3 of all the plays that we've had happened in the last 30 days. And that's all the plays we've had since we began measuring this stuff. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sure stories have to do with that.
And it has to do with the vibrations of all of us.
Yes.
And, the fact that we're all vibrating with our love of this and our joy of it, and you are really vibrating with that, and you've already told the universe that you want to reach 1 million plus. I don't know how many you said, but a lot of people.
A lot of people,
and,
right?
That's a very strong thing to do, to be so. And then you're following up with action, which is really, I think it is important when you're feeling inspired that you go ahead and do the action. That you add a show and you add another show and you find some more co-hosts, and the fact that it's such a powerful thing for each of us to, in our feeling good each week. For me, it's like the high point of my week is to do the podcast because, and I know it is for you, because it's just an hour of talking about everything that I want to be talking about in my life. I want to be talking about creating wonderful success, doing it with ease, doing it with fun, doing it with joy, and allowing the universe to have my back and to just relax about the whole thing, and to do that in the company of others. That's what I love so much about this podcast kind of thing, or creating this book like you're doing. You're creating community around it, and it's so much easier, I think, to do these things when we have a community of support around us.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt at all. In fact, that was one of the big draws to expanding the podcast, because, I used to do it once a week, and once a week wasn't nearly enough. Especially when we started seeing the increase in listenership, I just became really hungry to do it more often for the exact reasons you talked about, because there is an addictive quality to it. The addictive quality is a good kind. It's an addiction to the joy, to the fun, to the excitement of doing it. Like, wow, I can't wait to do the next one. So it's to the point now where I'm doing 2 podcasts a day, 3 on Tuesday, and another one on Sunday. I mean... And it's like, well, I don't have all that much time that I can put into it, that I can just put endless hours. And so I'm already feeling the pinch on that. But there's the other part of me that says, I don't care. This is great. This feels good. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because you can sort of tweak and tailor make the amount of energy you put into it to where it just feels perfect in your life. It feels just the right amount, And
that's right.
It is possible to overdo it, but you don't need to. You can just have your affirmation be, I'm going to keep this in the perfect proportion to live a really balanced life and to have this enjoyable, wonderful thing in my life. And that's my choice. That's what I'm choosing. That's what I'm telling the universe. Because there's another story,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
did you
want to tell a story? Go ahead. I was just going to fill people in.
No, I didn't have a story. I was going to tell something I was going to share.
No, go ahead.
Well, today I had, as far as this is sort of like prosperity or money abundance consciousness part 2. We had part 1 on Monday morning. And so I brought some things to the show today that one of the things I wanted to share is beginning techniques that a person could do in their lives if they would like to increase their allowing of prosperity and abundance and money into their lives.
Oh, that's always
and
good.
it goes right along with one of them goes along with storytelling in a sense, because here's the thing. If we start watching what we're saying out of our mouths to anyone at any given time, or we're writing, now this is just the express stuff, not just so much what you're thinking, which is the bottom line, but this is the stuff where you can begin is start noticing what you're saying to other people about your finances. And here's the thing. You say no negative statements can be said any longer about your finances. And see if you can do that. Like, it's something to play with and work on is, because I can't tell you how many times I've said, I really can't afford that. Or I've said, until I get more money, or, something like that. Well, then that's my story. And that'll be the vibration that I'm putting out to the universe.
And we've all done that one too.
Yeah, but it's sort of like, would you be willing for, the next 3 weeks or 2 weeks to only make positive statements when you talk about your finances, or don't talk about them at all. So if you're prone to say something to somebody about, like, in a negative way, then see if you can either turn it into a way that you can say it that's not negative. It doesn't have to be totally positive, but it could at least be neutral. Like, rather than say, I can't afford that to somebody, you could say, well, I would love to have that if you could offer me a price that feels better to me. And that's not really the same as saying, I really can't afford it, I just don't have the money. Because that will reinforce that feeling over and over again, and that vibration. But when you say, I would love to have that thing, that's really a cool thing, I like that. Could you offer me a better price? Could you offer me a different price? Or or you could say to yourself or to somebody, I'm going to definitely come back and get that very soon, because I'm going to have the money for that. I intend that I'm going to come back and buy that. And that's really different than saying, I just don't have the money. I don't know when I'm going to have the money to buy something like that. It'd be great, but I just don't know when I could ever do it. I just haven't been having the money in my accounts. And, on all that story, that comes along with it, that's where we can get stuck. And repeating those things reinforces that vibration. So that's something I wanted to share.
Yeah, that's true. And in fact, it's also useful to remember that we can engage in an incremental approach to it. So if our previous self-talk was something like, well, I just don't have the money, I can't really afford anything, then we turn it into an incremental step like, well, I would like it if I could afford something like that, which is a little bit better. It's not quite positive yet, but it's more in the right direction. Or, I would certainly feel better if I could afford that. And wouldn't it be great if I could afford that? Now I'm making it up a little bit higher vibration. And then maybe taking it to, wow, I'm getting closer and closer to being able to afford that. This is getting better and better. And then maybe, you know what, I'm going to be able to afford this really soon. In fact, I may even consider getting this next week. And you just keep working it up the scale, and doing it on a scale that's believable for yourself. But you can do it incrementally. You can actually make that change slowly, which is often easier to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was saying affirmations on my walk today. They said a really good time to say affirmations is when you're out in nature, or you're in a really relaxed, walking mode, and you're getting your endorphins going, and you're getting in sync with your breath and the rhythm of walking. And so I was saying this one to myself today. I was saying, I enjoy a continual flow of plenty of income into my bank accounts. I enjoy a continual flow of plenty of income into my bank accounts. And sometimes you can add to that from both expected and unexpected sources. So you don't have to know how the universe is going to provide this stuff for us. The thing that we need to do is to tune our vibration to the positive expectancy of the thing already happened, and by saying I enjoy a continual flow of plenty of income, that's saying it not in a way that I want it and I need it, to where then it's in the future. You're saying I'm enjoying, it's already a happening event. I'm enjoying a continual flow of plenty of income. So sort of, for me, it covers all the bases that I need to cover.
Absolutely.
And then just to make that more of a habit, then, I could go on that walk and be thinking about, God, I really need to get more money. I don't know if I need to do better marketing. I don't know. It was really going there really good for a while, and then it kind of slowed down, and I'm wondering what I'm doing. It's not working right now because I could use 5 more clients, And instead of saying it that way, just say, I'm continually attracting plenty of clients and plenty of money, and it's flowing into my bank accounts. Now, if you feel like your subconscious is going to push back on that, one really good suggestion is that you just repeat, say the words wealth and success, because then you're not giving any particular message to your subconscious about that it could push back on. You just say the word wealth and success, wealth and success. In fact, it's suggested that right before you go to bed and right when you're waking up, just for several minutes, just say those words, wealth, success, wealth, success, wealth, success. I don't know if I could do it for several minutes. I've done it for a minute. But, just wealth, success, wealth, success, wealth, success.
Well, and I could see myself taking that formula and expanding it. Like just wealth, success, I'd probably get bored with that pretty quickly. But I could see myself coming up with a list of like 20 words and then reading that list of 20 words to myself repeatedly. That starts to become a little bit more believable for me because, well, I just like more than 2 words.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well,
I also want to remind people we're doing this show live Tuesday evening between 9 and 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're doing it primarily because we want to give people a chance to call in who have thought about calling in the past but just couldn't do it during the daylight hours. So that's why we're doing this as kind of a test. So if you're listening in live and you kind of have the inclination but you've been a little bit shy, don't be shy. Just follow the instructions. The phone number is probably the easiest one, especially if you're listening to us on your smartphone. Just click on the number and you'll be able to connect to us right away, and we'd love to talk with you. So just wanted to mention that.
Should you give out the number again? Or?
Yeah, we can give it out again. It's actually just a quick click with the smartphone when you're on the homepage at loatoday.net. But the number is 712-832-8330, and the access code is 334-2044. That's all right there on the homepage of loatoday.net, so you don't have to remember it. You can just look for it there.
Well, talking about that thing of having a bunch of different words that signal to your subconscious abundance. They put you in that vibration because the words feel good to you, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because the power of the spoken word and the written word to ourselves, as well as to others, but especially to ourselves, is actually underestimated, I would say. It's incredible what we can tell ourselves, and as long as it's something that we initially believe, then the belief increases as we tell it to ourselves. Does that make sense to you? In other words, if there's something that I believe to at least some degree, and I say it to myself over and over and over again, I begin to believe it even more and more and more and more, until finally I'm just overwhelmed with belief on it, which is what Abraham Hicks tells us, right? They teach us that a belief is literally nothing more than a thought that we think over and over again. And, that's actually the best definition of a belief I've ever heard. I've heard a lot of definitions of belief, particularly in religious circles and so forth. And that's it right there. It's a thought that we think over and over again.
That's right. I love that definition because it takes all this intensity off the word beliefs, So if you have certain beliefs about money that are keeping money out of your life, and you can recognize, that, I'm telling myself that money is hard to come by, or I'm telling myself I don't deserve it because, there's so many other people that don't have it. Why should I have it? Or the people that have money are not good people. A lot of people who are wealthy are taking advantage of the earth or taking advantage of other people. So any of those kind of belief systems that we have going on, if we can recognize what they are, all they are is a thought that then we continue to repeat it on some to ourselves, and that's keeping the money from flowing to us in our lives, because that's our dominant vibration, is these old thought patterns. But it's just a thought, and it can change those thoughts. That's why what I'm doing now is each week I come up with 5 new affirmations, And it makes it more fun to say affirmations when I have 5 new ones each week. And by, carefully writing them to each week to be the things that are most up for me, like the one I was saying today about money. It's really a powerful one for me right now. And I have one about relationships. And, so affirmations are actually powerful if it feels good when we do it. If we enjoy saying them.
Can you share, like you mentioned you had one for money and one for relationships. Can you just share again, what the affirmation sounds like so that somebody who's perhaps trying to put their own together, they can have like a model to work with?
Well, yeah, like the one on money, like say the thing that you would most want to be experiencing, that you intend to experience once you have that thing that you want. So like if it's money, you could say, like I was saying, I am enjoying. I am is a good way to start an affirmation with an I am statement. Mm-hmm. So you could just say I am wealthy, but if your conscience is going to push back on that because you just don't believe it, then you could say I am enjoying a continual flow of plenty of income into my bank accounts.
Okay.
And of course, for some people, they're going to say, well, I don't believe that either. That's why if you say the word wealth or the word success, you're at least not putting into your subconscious the word poverty and the word doubt, or the word,
right.
Lack. You're saying wealth and success, but any I am statement you can make that you are willing to say, I'm going to take a stand for believing in that, and it feels good to me to take that stand, and I can do it easily, I can do it in a relaxed way. So I'm going to say that, like around relationships, I say, I am allowing into my life my ideal partner. I also say, my ideal partner exists in my vortex, in that reservoir of infinite potentiality. So, my ideal partner already exists, and I'm allowing her into my life. So those kind of statements, that feel good when we say them. And a lot of people who seem to be quote unquote experts in affirmations say I am statements are the most powerful because you're saying that you already have it. You already are that. I am wealthy.
Yeah, right.
I got the most clients. I got the most clients ever when I was saying that. When I was saying to myself, I am wealthy. It took me weeks to get to that point. Well, it took me weeks to get to the point where I could believe it when I said it. Or I could say, because I didn't see that I'm wealthy. I mean, I'm well off, but I'm not wealthy, But then I realized, well, why wouldn't I want to be wealthy? Wealth is fine. I could then do whatever I wanted. I could contribute to any organizations I wanted. I could get any house I wanted. I could go to visit any country I wanted. I could, So then I said, well, I'm just going to see what it feels like to try to own that. So I tried to own it for about 3 weeks, and finally, at the end of those 3 weeks, I was really feeling it because I would say it at every stoplight. I'd say it when I was walking into the store. I would, but I got lighthearted about it. I was easy about it, and that's when all these clients started to contact me during that period. It was very interesting. It was very much the law of attraction in action. It felt fantastic and then as I would get each client and I would have a free session with them, sometimes I would say, this person, I want this person as my client. This person is going to become my client. And I would just say it very calmly and matter-of-factly. And about, I would say, 6 times out of 10, that's exactly what happened. They did become my client. And I really saw that it was this thing of having money in abundance it's something that has to flow almost like air. There's something really easy about money that we don't really realize that because we have so much stress around it, a lot of us. People have put such an emphasis on money that it represents so much to us and it has so many concepts about it that we got from our parents and all these different ways that we see money constantly reflected to us in the environment.
Yeah, that's true. And the thing I'm noticing, too, as you're telling about that, an affirmation is really the first sentence of your new story. I mean, we don't think of them that way necessarily. We just think of them as affirmations, and we're going to repeat them, and by repeating them, we're going to get ourselves into a better state of mind. But it's also the beginning of your new story that you're telling yourself. And even if you're just repeating that same line over and over again, it is a nascent story. It's a new story that, it's waiting to be built out by you. It's waiting for you to tell the longer version of it. But at least you got it started. So when you have an affirmation, even if it is not one that you invented, as long as it feels good, you've got the first line of your story. Then over time, we start to realize, okay, well, I feel like I'm beginning to feel like I can say a little bit more than one sentence. So if my first sentence is, I'm not going to go for I am wealthy. I'm going to go for something a lot lower. So I'll say my income is improving. Okay. And it doesn't have to be even improving by much. It can improve by 0.1% in its improvement. So my income is improving. And I may get tired of saying my income is improving, my income is improving. So maybe I decide to add on my income is improving. And what's really cool is I don't know exactly what's doing it. I can't see the mechanism, but it's happening. And I've never consciously experienced that before. Now I've got 3 or 4 sentences on my story. My story is starting to actually turn into a story. So this is important because I think a lot of people get hung up. I know I got hung up on, well, I don't know how to tell a story. That's why I watch the movies. They're the ones who know how to tell the story. I don't know how to tell the story. And yet we actually do. We just have to trust it enough to try putting out just a few sentences and kind of live with them for a little while. And then be willing to add a few more sentences over, maybe a course of days. And then maybe add a few more and then eventually turn it into a narrative. And when we turn it into the narrative, I mean, look what you did just by repeating 1 or 2 phrases over and over again. You got all these clients in. Imagine what happens when you turn that into a full narrative like you did early on in the podcast where you gave this whole long description about, how you were traveling and all this other stuff. Like, whoa, okay, I'm blown away. Well, if you're blown away, then certainly that's enough attraction and interest for the universe to say, well, yeah, we want to include him. We're gonna the vibrations there. We're gonna send it. So, and we actually have a caller calling. So let's see what's going on here. We're going to unmute this person. There we go. And who do we have on the line?
Hi, this is Lucy.
Hi, Lucy. How you doing?
I am well. How are you?
I'm fine. Lucy's a fan, Tom. She's been listening for quite some time, and she heard that I live in the Hartford area. She lives in the Hartford area, too, of Connecticut, so she got in touch with me. And it's great to hear from you. It's fantastic. Thanks for calling in.
This is so exciting.
So what's on your mind? Are you doing anything fun this evening? Or do you have anything that you wanted to contribute? Any wins? Or just did you want to just call in to say hello?
Well, I wanted to call in and say hi. Let you guys know that that real people are listening. And I hear all about all the updates on how many more people are listening every day. And I think that that's exciting. And I was thinking about how all the followers and listeners probably are thinking also about spreading with others who might not be listeners, just a message about LOA in general. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm thinking of incorporating is the law of attraction into a project that I'm working on, sharing with parents how to connect with their kids and how important it is just to have a separate type of outlook on life, that people who might not have ever heard about this, just to say, okay, this can be incorporated not only into, parenting, just all types of areas with whatever a person might be pursuing to better a part of their life.
Very nice. What brought that on? What made you think of that? That's a great topic.
Well, I am a preschool teacher, and I've been working with parents and young children, and they only live in the moment, and unless they are learned the word no, they don't understand it at all. So they kind of teach me how I feel like they're untainted. Like I almost feel like the universal laws are ingrained in us and we unlearn them. and with culture, and because they just go after whatever they want, and the conversation about imagination that was in one of the recent podcasts, I was thinking about it today, even at work with the children, and just like, okay, I have an imagination. I'm supposed to be teaching these kids how to have an imagination when really I just need to step out of the way.
Yeah.
And how that can be something that I show to parents, not only to appreciate how children learn, but as a way to connect with how we should be learning and exploring our own paths and futures.
It's funny. Children are actually the world champions at imagining, and yet the adults think that they have to teach them how to imagine. It's a funny thing when you think about it.
It's hilarious. Yeah. They don't. These adults don't fool me. They don't fool me, not a bit. I was also thinking about how important the idea of the reverse storytelling, or the highlight on negativity just to prove a point. With a discussion that was in a recent podcast in movies and telling a story just about how a conflict is highlighted as the most important thing, and how children's stories should be, not only children's stories, but all stories should be focused on the positive part of how life can go and should go. Oh, yeah. I totally agree with that. For so long, since I was, I don't even know, maybe like 8 or 9 years old, I was very aware of how a show would highlight all of these bad things, and at the end, something was resolved, and I was just so curious as to see how life was improved in ways that the story never mentioned because the conflict was resolved. I was just very aware of that at a very young age. And I thought it was really, really cool how you discussed that stories that you just don't buy, that the conflict is what should be highlighted.
Yeah, I mean, a story needs to have conflict, at least to make it a basic story that becomes entertainment. But the thing that I think that the TV shows and the movies do is they live in the conflict. They just can't escape the conflict. The conflict has to be stretched on and on. I mean, it's like the Hollywood formula, right? If you want to have a formulaic movie, you create a suspense scene, and then the suspense increases, and your protagonists are in a harrowing situation. They're on the cliff's edge, and then as they're on the cliff's edge, now they're dangling over the cliff. And it's like this endless keeping people in suspense, keeping people on the edge of their seat kind of thing. Well, you don't need all that. You've already engaged them. It's like you don't need to keep that going, but that's what they insist on doing.
I think it's amazing how a child will listen to a story not about the story, but for the connection. You can tell them anything you want to tell them. If it's a genuine connection, they will eat whatever you have for them. They will just eat it right up. And I feel like that's a very, very important thing to think about with adults too. It's like we don't even know what connection is anymore sometimes, and therefore we have to look at how we're feeling, just to see if a conflict makes us feel better about our own situation. I know that's a point that I've heard about why people just pay attention to these negative, sometimes reality shows, for an example. If other people are going through drama, they feel better about their own life, and that's not something that is helpful at all.
It's a fairly low standard. It's about as low of a standard.
Absolutely.
That's the best you can shoot for, right?
It does exactly. Make it work sometimes. One thing that people do, though, I think that people love so much, is they love to have the conflict, because then they can rise to the occasion of giving love to somebody. So that if you've got a community disaster going on, everybody gets into it, because now we can all step outside of our normal lives and help somebody and bring something beautiful into somebody's life who's suffering. And what I see is that's become sort of like an accepted standard of as good as it gets in a lot of ways. I think people think, well, that's really a good thing that we continually go back to the fact that disaster happened, and now we're all helping each other. Disaster happened, and now the hero's stepping forward to save the day and to make it better for everybody else. And that's sort of just one way we can enjoy life. That it's an okay thing that we love each other and we help each other during times of crisis. But then it seems like our culture has created this belief that we have to keep focusing on crisis so that we can keep helping each other. And that's not the only way to be in love with each other, and to have a good time together. That's something I've really noticed a lot.
That's a very good
point.
All
right, well, I want to thank you guys for including me in part of your podcast. I'll let you go now, and you guys have a great night.
Well, thank you, Lucy. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks so much for calling.
It. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. It was great, and keep going with the good work with the kids. I mean, I just wanted to tell you before you left, I once helped found a school in New Britain, which is right near Hartford, as you know. It was an alternative school. I was raised in New
Britain. That's funny.
You were? Okay. Well, actually, It was at the St. Mark's Church. That's where the school actually still is. And it's an alternative school. And in this school, the kids pretty much run their own day. So you spend a lot of time deferring to the kids when you're a staff member there. And it's just amazing to watch kids when they take control of their lives, because their imaginations come to life when they have that level of control. So, I mean, I know that you're experiencing very much the same kind of thing when you're working with your kids. You're getting to see them, put their imaginations to work and grow in ways that's just incredible. That's got to be really, really rewarding for you. So, keep doing it, and best of luck on it.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, I'll let you go now.
Take care.
Have a great one.
Thanks for calling in.
All right, see you, Lucy.
All right,
bye-bye.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, that was great. Hey, we got our first caller, Tom. Yeah. How about that?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be fun to just have a whole bunch of callers, and we get to listen to what they have to say, too, besides us just talking?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because as Lucy demonstrated, you don't have to actually be calling in with a question or with wanting a coaching or whatever. You can just call in to share, because we love that probably even more. And what Lucy had to share was great. I mean, wanting to teach parents how to listen to the kids and how to learn from the kids' ability to imagine things. What a great concept. I love it.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful thing. That's something that I really want to see a lot more of, learning from children.
Oh, yes.
Really fantastic.
It's interesting, too. I mentioned that school that I helped to found. When we were in the process, this was that
was a great story.
This is like a year after 9/11. In fact, we opened the school a year to the day after 9/11. And during that year, as we were recruiting families and recruiting kids to open the school with us, one of the things that you end up doing, of course, is trying to help the parents in particular, get on board with the model. And at the same time, you are trying to pay attention to the kids and what their needs are and what they're trying to accomplish and what their hopes are. And when you're in the middle of doing that, it's just freaking remarkable to watch kids as they follow what I call their compass. Now, that was before I was involved with law of attraction. I didn't know about law of attraction until The Secret came out. But so that was a few years later. But at that time, I called it their built-in compass. And that built-in compass is really nothing more than their connection to their inner being, as we would describe it today. And that connection is basically through law of attraction. It's how they find their way through life. Well, that compass, as I called it, you could see it from the moment that the kids came into the room wherever we were giving our presentations. You could see it from the moment they opened their mouths. And very often kids would come in and they just kind of listen, especially if they were older kids. They weren't contributing a whole lot. But once they contributed, you could just watch their compasses were pointing them exactly at what they needed to learn the most. And it rarely had to do with what the traditional school system had in mind. It had to do with what their needs were, what their interests were. And when they started, going on about it, they were poets. They were rhapsodic about it. It was just fascinating to watch. So, I mean, I have nothing but the highest level of respect for kids because, well, they're closest to source. They got their, they were there most recently, and they have the strongest connection. It hasn't been, cultured out of them like it has for the adults. There's just so much we can learn from them in that regard. Yeah.
It's so amazing. And the thing that every new generation comes in on the shoulders of the previous generation, as Abraham said, they don't have to go through the same learning curve that the previous generation went through. So not only are they kids closer to source, but they're the new kids who are bringing in this new energy. I remember Esther or Abraham saying recently, and more than one time that I've heard them say this, is we're not worried at all about your world, because the new energy that's coming in constantly in the form of all these new children that are born all over the world is bringing in just such a revolution of consciousness into the world that you don't need to worry about things going to hell in a handbasket. It ain't going to happen, because this energy they're bringing in is so full of solutions and possibility that we can just relax, and but we have to listen to them. We've got to give the young people the chance to express themselves, and I think it's so cool.
It is.
It's so beautiful.
I often feel like I'm lacking words to describe the experiences that I had just watching and being around those kids, especially that first year after we got the school open. I mean, I was one of the full-time staff there when we first opened it. And I mean, every single day, if you just watched and you paid attention and you listened, you learned so much about how kids learn, stuff that you never realized before, stuff that should have been obvious, but in the context of our traditional educational models, it's stuff that never gets explored. So when you watch it and you look for it and you see it, you're just blown away. I mean, let me tell you, kids are really smart. They are incredibly smart. And that's one of the best ways to appreciate just how smart they are, just watching them go through their stuff during the day. Not being pinned down into a seat, among 30 other seats in a room, but just doing things the way they would tend to do it. You learn so much about how smart they really are.
So beautiful. You must be a great observer, because you really see it all. Well, some people, they just would never observe that. They wouldn't see that. They would be too much thinking that they were better than the kids, or they knew more than the kids, or the kids fit into some kind of a box that they've got figured out for the kids, but you sound like you're really open to learning and observing,
Well, it's very much like what we talk about when we talk about deliberate creation, right? With deliberate creation, that's where you're using the law of attraction to your own advantage. You're recognizing that, the basic concept of the law of attraction, like attracts like, similar vibration attracts similar vibration. So you want to put out thoughts, right, that are vibrating at a very similar rate, that have the same kind of feel as whatever it is you're trying to attract. And then you're trying to allow it. You're trying to get rid of your own resistance and just allow it to come to you. Well, that's the same basic principle that you have to do with kids. And you're right. If you go in with the idea that you know better than them, that you're smarter than them, you know all the stuff that they don't know, then you're basically putting up a level of resistance. It's just like not allowing in something that you're deliberately trying to create. And if you don't allow it in, well, you're just not allowing it in. You're right. A lot of people won't allow it in. But that is also something that you learned, and it's something you can unlearn. Anybody can unlearn that, even though we've all been taught it. And the most important thing that I can suggest is, if you're dealing with kids in any way and you feel like perhaps you haven't been listening as well as you could have, it's really simple. Just listen. Just pay attention. Pay attention to what they're doing and what they're saying. Just watch them. You don't have to interfere. You don't have to ask questions. You don't have to do anything. Just listen. They'll show you. You just have to let them do it. You have to have a little patience and sit back and just kind of watch. Be the observer. It doesn't take a lot of energy to be an observer. It really doesn't. It's actually very, very passive and very relaxing. In fact, that's one of the strange things about being a staff member in a school like this. You don't do a whole lot. You just kind of sit back most of the time and watch what happens.
That's really cool. Yeah. And the kids will learn, and it's so amazing. Yeah, we could have a really different society, couldn't we? I mean, it could be just a really different way that we do so many things. There's all this regimentation and laws, and that we expect that we have to have in order to make the society function, but it's vast majority of that is not really needed, I think.
No, I think you're right.
Like
and
Abraham was saying, almost every law that we have was created out of fear.
Right.
They said something like, we can't think of a single law that you've passed, the humans have passed, that isn't based somehow in fear.
And I think it's true.
People not conforming to what we expect them to conform, and then we think there's going to be something's going to go wrong. But there's just another way to perceive society, to perceive our interactions with each other.
And regarding,
I'm not saying I've got it all figured out.
Yeah, well, no, you've got a good part of it figured out, I'd say. And regarding what you were saying about how society could change, I think society is changing. I don't think the average person can see it, but I see signs of it happening all over the place. And it's one of the reasons I'm motivated so much to do this podcast, because this is where the leading edge is. Abraham talks about the leading edge of creation being the physical world, but I see the focus on the whole topic of deliberate creation and law of attraction as being leading edge within the physical world. And I really do believe there is a revolution of thought and of activity going on that it's going to take a long time before we see it in a major way. And long is a relative word. Long could be anything over a week, but it's going to take a while. Let's put it that way. But it's going to happen, and I firmly believe. You and I have had quite a bit of life already, and we hopefully still have quite a bit left. But I think you and I are going to see it in our lifetime, and I think it's going to happen in a big way, and I think it's going to happen relatively sooner than we might expect.
I think it is happening too. It's funny that you said that word revolution and everything, because I was at my Toastmasters meeting last week, Toastmasters being this international organization that people go to learn how to speak, to do public speaking. And it's very regimented and organized. It works, the organization's been around a long time. It's like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's just been there in every community. There's these Toastmasters where people go to learn how to do public speaking. And at the end of the last series of speeches last Friday that I gave my speech at, and afterwards, everyone who spoke was standing around. We were talking together, and one of the women was saying, "Isn't it amazing how much everybody today who spoke, even the people who spoke spontaneously, besides the prepared speech, all had a similar themes of how humans want to connect with humans through love, of how people need to find their unique gifts and manifest their unique purpose in life, and how life has a tendency to work really well when we let it. When we get out of the way, life will actually give us an amazing amount of rewards and the things we need because we're not stressing out about it." And she was saying how those were these themes, and she says, "Isn't that weird how that happened?" And I said, "I think it's actually going to become the norm, and that what we're seeing here is just part of a revolution that's happening worldwide of a raise in consciousness, that everything is raising in consciousness, and that's why you're seeing like 6 different people at one meeting all talking about the same theme, and none of them knew that person was going to bring that theme to their speech." And so I agree with you. I think something really wonderful is afoot, and I really want to be on the leading edge of that. I guess we're going to be whether we like it or not. But the more that we're talking about it and involved in it, and bringing it to the fore, we can be less impacted by the things that people say are the old paradigm suffering ways that we've always done things. Like it has to be hard, it has to be a struggle, and nothing comes easy. And instead, saying that no, things can be really elevated, things can be really enlightened. We can learn from our children, we can have a whole lot more fun, and we can all go towards manifesting our unique purpose in life. And love is actually the thing that we're here for. By giving more and more love to each other, it's just a natural thing for us all. And so, things like that is just really cool.
It is very cool. And in fact, you mentioned the struggle, because that's the thing that we're taught, right? You have to put your nose to the grindstone, and you have to work long hours and work hard. And if you do, through the struggle, you will be rewarded. And I can tell you from years of experience, having done exactly that, it doesn't work. It does not work.
Right.
I mean, the number of people, the percentage of people who make it using that formula is really small. It's not that there aren't people who do succeed doing that. There are, but they are the minority. They are not the majority. And it's important to remember.
Yeah, it would be fun to do a study of all the Olympic athletes in this Winter Olympics, and what each of their stories is how they got to be so successful. And I'll bet you that there's a whole bunch of really magical things that have happened in most of those people's lives that's been beyond just hard work. They might have put in all those hours at the gym and on the slopes and every place where they've trained. And that is important stuff because they learn those routines and they practice them and they mentally rehearse them, and it's important. But I bet you a whole bunch of them would say that they're there because of inspiration. They're there not because of motivation, but because of inspiration. That something happened in their life, or it continues to happen, that keeps them excited about what they're doing. It keeps them enjoying. Maybe it's the company of all the other athletes. Maybe it's the thrill they get from learning a new maneuver and mastering it. Maybe it's how amazing it feels when you're doing 8 spins in the air on your skis and landing a perfect land. I don't know, all the things that are inspiring to people, but I have a feeling that we could begin to live by inspiration rather than by motivation. Rather than we got to push ourselves. We got to push ourselves.
And by the way, I don't want to undermine the idea that struggle isn't a place that you can come from and that you can't emerge from that victorious. I mean, a lot of people have. Joel Elston has a long history of coming from a really bad place of struggle and emerging incredibly triumphantly. But even Joel will tell you he didn't do it just through the struggle. He had to embrace the concepts of positive psychology and of the law of attraction in order to get himself out of there. He wouldn't trade any of that experience. He very much values and appreciates that experience, but he also chose not to live in that experience and to stay there. And that's what you end up doing if you're trying to just struggle your way out. Struggling your way out is where you're not really going to get anywhere. But like you said, if you bring inspiration into it, it's an entirely different thing. I wanted to mention we are kind of nearing the end of the hour. That doesn't mean that you can't call in. We did have that one call from Lucy. It was great to hear from her. If someone has been thinking about it and you wanted to call in, don't worry about the lateness of the hour. The one thing that's different about this show compared to the other shows we have to limit them to 1 hour because they all end up also being played as a replay on the Progressive Radio Network on PRN. So we have to stick to a 1 hour format. For this, this show isn't going on to PRN, so we don't have to stick to it. So if you were to call in now, we can still talk to you for a few extra minutes. It's not a big deal. So even though there's only a few minutes left in theory, go ahead and give a call. The number's on the website, loatoday.net. You can just click it with a smartphone and it'll just dial you through and put in the access code. If you're dialing manually, it's all right there, but I'll repeat it again, 712-832-8330, access code 334-2044. And again, just clicking on it will automatically dial all that anyway. But I just want to give people, anyone who's been kind of sitting there and saying, maybe I'll call, I'm not sure. I want to give you that little extra push. Say, go ahead and call. There's time. It's okay.
Cool.
We were talking about the at the beginning of the show the importance of focusing on what we want when we're focusing on trying to attract something financially into our lives, and we were talking about the thing about how we want to get affirmations going and turn them into stories and so forth. Maybe one of the things we need to do with this podcast, the evening podcast, is we need to start telling the story more about how we want the Tuesday night thing to go. I mean, I kind of been doing it a couple times there by encouraging people to call, but I love the idea of people calling in and just sharing like what Lucy did. I mean, Lucy, look what Lucy's doing. She is doing this incredible stuff with kids that she works with on her job, and instead of trying to change the kids, she's actually trying to teach the parents how to appreciate what the kids are already knowing how to do, in many ways better than what the parents can do, how to use their imaginations and how to understand that in the context of, applying it in a law of attraction way. That's a phenomenal thing. We would never have heard that story if she hadn't called in. Well, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be great if we had lots of people calling in and sharing those kinds of stories? I mean, that's really the motivation behind the book, right? We're putting this book together with all these manifestation stories because manifestation stories are inspiring. They make you feel good. They're a way of saying, wow, yeah, okay. Now I don't feel like I'm all alone. Now I can see, other people are doing the same thing. They're having these great results. This is great. This is good stuff. Well, the same thing can happen when somebody calls in and shares, whatever they've been doing, whatever their interests are. It might be. And if they have a question or something they're struggling with, we're happy to help deal with that too. But imagine doing shows like this, Tom, every Tuesday where we get lots of people calling in. Can you imagine what that's going to be like?
It's going to be wonderful. And they could call in and tell us what their wins are too. You know how we often start a show talking about some wins that we've had. A win meaning that we saw the law of attraction, how our vibration brought into our life something wonderful, that the thing that showed up in our life was a match to the vibration that we were putting out, and how the universe took care of us when we were relaxed and we were at ease, and all of a sudden something wonderful flowed into our life that we've been wanting to have happen, or maybe something that completely surprised us, things like that. Or a story of how somebody used an affirmation, or how they used a visualization, or any kind of thing like that someone's been inspired by, that they could share with other people, just makes all of our lives that much better when we hear somebody else's success.
Yeah, it's funny how success stories breed more success stories. I mean, I'm thinking right now, the stories weren't necessarily success stories, although many of them were, but the books that Jack Canfield pioneered, the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. Now, they were mainly intended to be stories that were just that. They were chicken soup for the soul. They were designed to help you heal from bad experiences or things that weren't going right or whatever. They were designed to help you feel better about yourself by just reading what had happened with other people in other people's lives. Well, the same principle works here too. I mean, people just love hearing other people's stories. And in order to tell other people's stories, you have to, have the other people telling the stories. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to get going here.
Since we're talking about prosperity, I can recommend a book that people might like, and it's got a whole bunch of stories in it of people who succeeded by using the law of attraction to attract prosperity into their lives. Should I give the name of the book?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
It's called Feel Free to Prosper. It's by Marilyn Jennett, Jenett,
Okay.
Marilyn, Marilyn Jennett. Feel Free to Prosper. It's subtitled 2 Weeks to Unexpected Income. She claims in here that if you follow her lessons, that you can increase your income, in as short a time as a couple of weeks, with the simplest prosperity laws available. And there's a section near the back where she has stories of about, maybe 20 or 30 people telling the story of how their whole life was changed in some really significant way by working with her particular program. And her program is based on the law of attraction. So I thought that might be an interesting thing to mention on a law of attraction podcast. It was recommended to me by the people at Good Vibe University, which is another law of attraction source of interest, Good Vibe University online. And so I like to pass along things like that. And the book has been helpful for me, and I'm beginning to do the lessons. I've done a lot of other things around prosperity, but I find this to be particularly good, actually.
It's a nice title, actually. It's a very welcoming title. It doesn't sound like it's hardcore. It sounds like it kind of pulls you in easily.
Yeah, there's so many books out there about prosperity and about how you can achieve increased wealth in your life and bring more money into your life. And it's nice to know when there's a book that several people recommend who are in the law of attraction field, because I think that a lot of the books, if you go on Amazon, you just don't know what you're going to get, when you get that book. And, there's a lot of science of mind movement that I think is good for wealth creation, but some of it is pretty religious in the way it uses a lot of, stories from the Bible and stuff, which is fine if you enjoy those kind of stories too. Actually, I changed my whole life using one of the books from the Science of Mind Church that was about manifesting abundance, and it used constant biblical passages to prove the points it was making, but I didn't care. It changed my life because it got me thinking for the first time in my life about how I was creating my own reality, and that how if I just completely believed in the abundance of the universe, and that's how the universe was designed, that I could just tap into that. And I did. For 25 years, I had a fantastic income from the business that I created through that. It all started with that book.
It was inspired with that book. That's very good. That's excellent.
Yeah, and I've given away the book, so I don't even remember the name of it anymore.
Oh, dear.
Oh, it's okay. It's like I sort of lost interest in it, about 30 years ago after I read it, and I had it around for 5 years. But
yeah.
So there's a lot of good stuff out there to help with manifesting
is.
abundance. So if anybody feels stuck in creating more money in their life, just start putting your focus on allowing yourself to have the money. This lady, Marilyn Jennett, says she suggests one of the starters is you write 25 times a day. You write, I easily accept new prosperity thoughts, and I'm prepared to increase my income now. And write it 25 times a day until you start seeing shifts. She said it'll take about 1 to 2 weeks, and you'll start seeing things start showing up in your life that you know you're starting to get more prosperity. So you say, I easily accept new prosperity thoughts, and I am prepared to increase my income now.
Very good.
So that's a good one.
Yeah, that is good. Well, this has been a good conversation, and we had our first caller, so that was very exciting. Hopefully that becomes the basis for more callers going forward. I'd say that the experiment is, at least in the first stage, a limited success, wouldn't you? I mean, because we had that first caller, and it's often breaking the ice that's the hardest part.
Yeah, I think, we are going to get more and more callers as long as we want to do this and we're enjoying it. Then our vibration will bring callers. There's no question. And if that's our intention, the universe will answer that intention.
I think you're right. So let's do it again next week. Sound good to you?
Yeah.
All
yeah,
right.
Sounds good to me.
Well, sounds good to me too. So we will
we'll see what we're going to have as a topic, and maybe we'll use the same Monday morning topic. Maybe could carry over till Tuesday night.
Yeah,
we'll
that's
see.
a good plan. That's a good plan. That way we always have a topic that we don't have to think of a new topic for Tuesday night, right?
Yeah. Well, I sometimes do a bunch of research to like bring interesting new things to each topic. So I don't know if I could do three a week because I sometimes put in 5 or 6 hours of looking into it before I go onto the podcast. But anyway.
That's all right.
It could be just a really easy thing to do.
We always have enough to talk about anyway with a topic in one show, so it's not like we're going to be lacking information to convey in a second, in a part 2 of the show on a Tuesday night. So I'd say, keep going with that same formula. I think it works great. So just wanted to remind people, we'll be back here next Tuesday at the same time, 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, we have the regular podcasts Monday through Friday. There's the morning cast at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and the afternoon cast at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So feel free to tune in on those. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe. That's all on the homepage as well. And, Tom, it's been great. Let's do it again.
All right, Walt. Thanks so much. Thanks,
all
everybody.
Right. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.